Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
She's back.
I'm back.
Sat out the last video
I did.
or two.
Sorry.
That's okay. You're back now. That's
I'm
all that
back.
matters.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to talk about tabletop gaming and unions. We've talked about both things in the last couple of days, and it's interesting that they're kind of converging here. Paizo, large tabletop gaming manufacturer, company that makes Pathfinder, publishes Pathfinder, their employees are going to unionize.
Oh boy.
Now, we're going to talk about this because there's been a lot of chatter about Wizards of the Coast, having issues with their working conditions. And of course, Wizards trying to be as politically correct as possible. How much longer until they unionize? And then I have to wonder if they unionize, because this is the way of things, will Hasbro just sell them off? Rather than deal with it, because the word on the street has been for the last couple of years that Hasbro has been prepping to sell Wizards of the Coast. And of course, you're going to sell high. People are like, well, D&D's selling really well. I'm like, yeah. So they'll get top dollar for it, whoever they sell it to. Of course, they're going to sell it when it's worth something, because what goes up must come down.
Right, and whoever they sell it to might take a look at the way it's been going and completely change everything.
Especially if they sell it to a Chinese company, which is the rumor that could be Tencent or one of these other that they want.
Boy.
Yeah, they want D&D for MMORPG or something like that. I don't know, but let's talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. Over 237,000 subs. Thank you so much for the support. We have been talking more and more about tabletop gaming as it has been on our radar more, because it's become a very weird scene, basically. But in this case, this is Paizo, maker of Pathfinder, and their employees want to unionize, citing poor working conditions. Now, I want to be clear. We talk a lot about unions because you've got, Kickstarter started a union, and gaming companies, different game publishers want to unionize.
Well, see, here's the thing. I think unions are a good thing when there are cases of people, not getting fair treatment, working too many hours, not getting adequate rest time breaks, things like that, pay, whatever, and they're being, taken advantage of. I 100% back unions at that point. However, then you have people like Kickstarter, which they just wanted a union for the most part because they wanted to dictate what they did and didn't produce, which was really weird.
Yeah, Kickstarter, and look how they dealt with that. Kickstarter, which prides itself on being a very progressive company, used the pandemic to kick a lot of its unionized employees to the curb.
The union starters, Kickstarter.
They did. And again, in that case, that was not necessarily about better working conditions. They said a big catalyst was they wanted to be able to dictate the content that was on the platform, which was, of course, going to cost Kickstarter money.
Right, and I remember that these people were all ass mad because they wanted to say certain things couldn't be, done because they felt that you couldn't do that because it was a terrible thing. But then other projects that they supported that were doing the exact same thing, they thought it was okay, and they wanted it to have a double standard. And the people that were there said, no, we're not doing the double standard. And that caused a shitstorm.
Yeah, what kicked off the Kickstarter union, if I remember correctly, was a comic book project called Always Punch Nazis. And Kickstarter management didn't want it on the platform. They said that it could incite violence. It was against their terms of service, whatever. The employees disagreed. They're like, no, we always need to punch Nazis. But then when it came to other projects that were done by conservatives that maybe weren't explicitly political, they just happened to be done by the wrong kind of people, then Kickstarter, would find a reason to boot them from the platform.
Yeah, so it was, again, this is one of those cases where I always say, if you're going to, you need to treat people evenly. If you're going to, say one person can't do that, the other person can't either. I think you need to have like an even policy. Now, back to when it is a good thing to have a union, I think, is when you have like crunch, 80-hour work weeks and things like that. Okay, I understand. Then I can kind of see why they might want a union to step in to fight for them, to make sure that they get adequate rest and things like that.
Yeah, and that's the difference. They're and I talked about this in the video yesterday about the activists making bad employees, and there is a difference between fighting against things that are unethical are illegal, like legitimately unethical and illegal, and things that just have your panties in a bunch or tidy whities.
And yeah, but your panties in a bunch can be very painful.
Yeah. And that's it. Now, in the case of Paizo, I'm not exactly sure. I do know that the tabletop RPG scene has gotten more and more political. It doesn't surprise me that, I'm actually surprised it wasn't Wizards first, but I think if they're going to do it, Wizards is absolutely going to follow suit.
I kind of hope so.
Good luck with that.
Historically speaking, that but right or wrong, historically speaking, when there are unions formed, they get rid of people.
Yeah.
Historically, I mean, whether it's right or wrong, I'm not taking a side. I'm just saying, historically speaking.
Well, I said in the video yesterday, I said about the one newspaper publisher I worked for. He actually wound up selling off part of the company just so he didn't have to deal with the union.
And that's what a lot of these companies do. That's why we're talking about Hasbro like we are and things. So I kind of low-key want them to do this just because then I can't wait to see what happens when they get sold.
Get some popcorn because it could be a very
exactly
interesting situation. Well, Kickstarter, I mean, look, they made a huge deal about how they unionized, and then they used the pandemic to be like, oh, it's so sad. We have to lay a bunch of people off that just happen to be members of the union. Yeah. Goodbye.
And then they're like, oh, we're having record good times now.
Yeah, exactly. Like, wow, look how much money we're making now. Well, too bad you weren't here for that. But same with the journalists too. You had the Huffington Post and you had Gizmodo and BuzzFeed, all these people trying to unionize. And it's like, oh, look, we're laying a bunch of people off, buying out your contract. It's cheaper to just buy out your contract, kick your ass to the curb than it is to keep you on with ridiculous demands.
So, I mean, like in cases where it's necessary, I 100% agree. In this case, they're talking about building a stronger working class, and what are their demands, or what are they wanting that they're...
Okay, so this is Paizo is forming a union with support from the Communication Workers of America, the largest media labor union in the U.S. And I think they were involved in some of these bloggers unionizing too.
Yeah, that sounds like it.
Paizo Workers, United Paizo Workers is the first union in tabletop. Unions have helped build a stronger working class in America, and I'm proud to stand with United Paizo Workers. Okay,
well, here's where it says they want. Right down here, this paragraph. Down here, at the very bottom. Paizo runs some of the most successful living campaigns in tabletop gaming history, with regular players in more than 36 countries. Okay. The United Paizo Workers press release goes to explain, however, despite this success, the workers are underpaid for their labor, required to live in one of the most expensive cities in the United States, and are subject to crunch conditions on a regular basis.
They're in Washington.
The kicker about this is, something like this, you really don't have to live there. You know what I mean? And so I can kind of understand it. It's a really expensive place to live. And if you're not paid enough to live there, and especially if you don't need to live there to do your job. Yeah.
Paizo moves to Texas when?
Yeah, right? A lot of them did.
Move to the Midwest. I mean, this is one benefit.
Well, then they'll complain about that.
Yeah.
They'll complain. If they'll move it, they'll be like, oh my God, the company's moving and I don't want to live there.
Then don't work for them.
That's what's going to happen.
I mean, we're dealing with tabletop games. How many people actually have to be physically located in the building?
They don't. But what I'm saying is they're complaining about that because we live in an expensive area, and their answer will be, okay, well, fine, we'll just move to another area that's less expensive, and they won't want to do that. They'll be like complaining. We saw it before with other companies, and then they're like, well, we don't want to move either.
All right, so the workers who have signed their names to the United Paizo Workers Union announcement range from game designers and editors to software developers and engineers.
So basically across the board.
Yeah, so they were criticized earlier this year for the firing of Sarah Marie, a 12-year veteran of the company who handled customer service and community management. Diego Valdez, who worked under Marie, resigned shortly after, blasting the company for the cowardly nature of her firing. I don't think this is going to help your case.
No.
So this is a whole nother issue, but apparently they pushed back on abusive management and got gone. And, two sides to every story. I mean, did they push back on abusive, were they doing their jobs correctly, incorrectly?
Well, this is that they said, and this is in the other article too, they said there was sexual harassment, bigotry, poor treatment of transgender freelancers and workers, general mismanagement, caused constant stress. Well, that's how crunch is.
Yeah.
But if you get back to the other article, that it tells you down here, it says that they're talking about management too.
Yeah.
They said that internal conversations among the workers have uncovered a pattern of inconsistent hiring practices, pay inequity, allegations of verbal abuse from executives and management, and allegations of harassment ignored or covered by those at the top. Sadly, it's probably true. I mean, I don't know, but I know that this is a consistent thing I see with a lot of companies.
Get another job.
Uh-huh.
Lots of them. I mean, look, I'm not trying to be a dick, but I'm like, if the workplace is legitimately that toxic, and this is what, why do people think a union is going to necessarily stop asshole bosses from being asshole bosses?
They're still asshole bosses. That still happens.
And then from the employer's point of view, they're like, okay, well now I can't even manage effectively because maybe and again, two sides to every story. Maybe what some people are perceiving as being toxic is a manager saying, look, we got to get this stuff done. Now, I said in the case of this other employee, if you read the other article, that apparently like work was getting backed up and things were, but this is every company.
Yeah.
And part of me thinks it's the geographical location being in Washington. It's a little bit different than if it would be in like, Idaho or something like that. And again, people work shitty jobs all the time. If you feel like you're being disrespected and abused in a job, God knows there are plenty of them out there right now.
Well, they said the only way to ensure all workers' voices are heard is collective action, and they want to push for real change at the company.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right. See, okay. This is going to go down like Kickstarter. Because this is what, when they're nebulous like this, it's not like, oh, they're making us work 80 hours a week. Oh, we have a Cosby room here at the, Paizo. Oh, no, it's like, we want to make sure that we're all heard. We all want to make sure that we're helping steer the ship. Your job as an employee, unless you're management, is to basically take the money
and do your job.
And do your job. They don't have to listen to everybody. If you're just, packing boxes to games, it's not the president of the company's responsibility to listen to everybody about how the gameplay and the product is. It's same with Spotify. Spotify, its employees were like, oh, we all have concerns about Joe Rogan. And the president of Spotify is like, well, I got concerns about Joe Rogan. We got too much money. That's my concern. And it's the same with a lot of these other companies. Look at Netflix. We have concerns about Dave Chappelle. And they're like, okay, well, now you broke your employment contract by leaking information. You're gone. Mm-hmm. And that became well, you're not listening to this. It's like, no, I listened. But as the boss, I fired your ass.
See, my thing is, if it is because of crunch and it is because there's legitimate abuse from executives and management, okay, I can understand it. I can't. And I won't disagree if that's the case. But if it's a case of we want more say in what the company does, I don't necessarily think that's, for...
They want to ensure that they feel secure in their employment. I'm sorry. I mean, again, I don't know the rules in Washington so much, but a lot of states are at will employment. And as long as you're doing a good job, you probably will keep your job unless you're like management level and have a contract. It is week to week. You don't know. Yeah,
plus we don't know all the ins and outs. I mean, is it a case of where they are legitimately being verbally abusive for no reason? Or is it a case of where someone didn't like, they told them no, or didn't listen to, they had an idea and they said, no, we're not going to do that. You're just ignoring me. I mean, I don't know.
I said managerial impropriety. What does that mean?
Okay, well, then they're doing that. Then that's not cool.
What does that mean, though? What does that mean?
Again, who alleged unfair hiring and disciplinary practices, unclean working conditions, sexual harassment, and verbal abuse. Yeah, those things are good reasons, I think, if they're legit.
I
think those are fine reasons to have, someone step in on your behalf.
What I am seeing, though, more and more is we have a lot of people, especially people working in the media, that, they're basically just trying to force their employer's hand. And what happens is the employer pushes back. I mean, we've seen this with blogs. Saw with Kickstarter. Again, I'm not saying that, Paizo is the best place in the world to work, but you can walk away. You can go work someplace else. You know?
Honestly, in this kind of situation, if you can't get some kind of, if these are true, these accusations are true.
Yeah.
If you cannot get some kind of something in place to help speak for you, you're best to just up and go someplace else. No one should have to deal with toxic behavior all the time if it's true. But the flip side is, if the company is just trying to get their stuff done and you're trying to dictate what they do and that's not your job, then that's something different as well. Basically, it's another case of, it depends what the reasons are.
Yeah, and so what's going to happen if this happens, right? If this goes through.
It's going to set precedent.
It's going to set precedent, and all the other tabletop game companies out there that are in, most of them in very progressive areas.
But here's the thing, if they're a progressive company, especially Wizards of the Coast, and they're doing all this stuff and calling everybody else bigots and calling them names and all this shit because you question some of their choices, why they not have one to begin with? Shouldn't they? I mean, if they're for the people like they claim, and they're for diversity and inclusion and all this stuff like they claim, why do they not have one already?
Like they claim.
Exactly.
Like they claim.
Like they claim.
But then what happens is when you claim that, your workers have certain expectations of what the working culture is going to be like. This reminds me of WeWork. If you haven't seen the WeWork documentary on Hulu, do yourself a huge favor. Watch it. Their whole selling point was like, we are all in this together. We're all one big happy family. This is all, when the company benefits, you benefit. We all benefit. Everybody's, we're doing this for you.
You're all special and you all deserve a golden pony.
You all deserve a golden pony. We're going to give you awards. We're going to have, cookouts and campouts and parties and all this great stuff. And we're this really progressive company. And then it turned out that, hey, we're still a for-profit business. And, when the chips were down, fuck you employees. That's basically what happened. So that's what's going on. But anyway, it'll be really interesting to see what happens with Wizards, especially with these rumors of them being up for sale. Mm-hmm. We're going to watch this with great interest. Mm-hmm. Going to wrap it up?
Yep.
Please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants, guys. We'll talk later.
Bye.